Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Saturday Warhammer War Room stream. I'm super excited to be joined by my guest, Danny. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Danny Montooth. I am a streamer. I'm from Perception Studio. I'm also a voice actor, audiobook narrator, big old board game nerd. I love all things that are fun. And that's me. And I also manage the tyrant known as Cucumber, also out there on the internet. But yay, hello. Thanks for having me. I am already in over my head. I'm excited.
No, we're happy to. Over the course of this past year, I've gotten into streaming on my own, doing it from my house. I still pop in on Hyper when they do Warhammer 40K these days remotely. But yeah, I've started this Saturday stream where I have guests on, and I like having lots of different kinds of people who are in the fandom or in the hobby at different levels, because it's always interesting to find out how people got in and what you're interested in. And it's cool.
Sweet. I'm
glad to have you. So what was, we'll get into like what's coming out in the news and what's coming soon from Games Workshop and all that, but let's start by a question I like to ask is, what was your first introduction to the universe of Warhammer?
Okay, first introduction. I'd say like the very, very first time I ever saw it, because I do frequent my brick and mortar board game stores pretty often. They always have the big tables in the back, and I'm like, that's freaking cool. Also conventions. I think the first time it like really melted my brain was at, I think it was a WonderCon. It was one of the smaller cons where I wasn't expecting to see a lot of gaming stuff, but like people had their full terrain, like painted armies, all this stuff. I was like, that's gorgeous. They're pulling out their tape measures. I'm like, that's math. I took a couple of steps back. But I was always like super impressed with it. I'm like, that looks like so much fun. And there's like clearly so much love and dedication into it. But I think the first time I ever played was at Hyper, and it was, it wasn't the game proper. It was Kill Team.
Kill Team, yeah.
Yeah, so Kill Team was first. And then the second time, and the last time I ever played, was at your house for that like 7.5 hour game where everyone got like 2 turns.
Yes.
I was like, I don't think it's normally like this, but holy shit. I'm sorry, can I?
No, you're good. You're good. Right. It's all good. Yeah, I've got my headphones in.
All right.
So that's quite an introduction to actually playing the game, is to be in situations like that. Right. And we do talk about how Kill Team is. So for every game that Games Workshop has, they've got, so the big ones obviously are Warhammer 40K or Warhammer 40,000, which is in the far future, and then Age of Sigmar, which is a fantasy game. And for both of those, there are sort of smaller versions that some of the rules are a little bit different, but they can be a good introduction. Can be. And I say that with some degree of ambivalence, you might say, because like when Kill Team first came out, and again, there have been different iterations of Kill Team for many years, but the current version, it was promoted, and a lot of people were really excited about it because it was like a miniature version of 40K, and it definitely started out that way. And over the next couple of years, they just released tons and tons of additional rules on top of the basic Kill Team structure that made it just as complicated as a game of 40K altogether. And that's why, at Hyper, when we did Kill Team, I always stressed, let's just keep it at the base Kill Team rules, both for guests who are there and for the audience. Like, we don't want to overwhelm everybody. And it could be an introductory product.
Yeah, I think it definitely, for me, going in knowing nothing, being super intimidated, it definitely it's like, hey, this is how this works on a very broad stroke, and that helps my brain a lot, right? It's just like your intro levels in a video game. It's like we're not unlocking that stuff till you know how to walk, kind of thing.
Right. And then your very next game was thousands and thousands of points.
Yeah, I remember halfway through, I was like, I just need you to tell me what to do. And I love that you had the character sheet things, like the breakdowns of every every figure and what they do, like on that keychain. And I was like, this is a lot. There's so much. But at the same time, it's like, I just feel like I fell into something else instead of this. Cause like if my Pokemon and Magic the Gathering brain had found 40K first, it would be the exact same thing. I think it's a similar level of complexity of just being like, we just have to memorize all these rules. And then these situations, these things are better and blah, 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 like strategy stuff. It's just, I had not had the time, I think. It's like,
my God. Yeah, there's definitely, especially in this edition where there aren't. So 2 editions ago in Warhammer 40k, there were things called universal or the USR, Universal Special Rules. So there was a chart at the back of the book that had, okay, the fly rule, and fly did this, and every unit that had that rule, had that keyword, had this specific rule, and that was it. Mm-hmm. Now in this edition, lots of things have fly, but that can mean different things for different units. No. So you really have to yeah, it's a little bit more, and again, that's not the best way of describing it, but it's essentially, it works that way. Yeah, but yeah, just like you said, just like with any game that has a good deal of complexity and has been going on for a number of years, yeah, you'll have the core rule system, which maybe not is not all that long. Like the core, technically the core rules for Warhammer 40k are, what is it, like 20 pages or something? But of course, then you get into the granularity of every unit having its own special abilities, and and then you need to learn all the weapons, and there you go. And again, and the actual rules in there are only a handful of pages. Then it's a lot of background.
It's a lot of lore. Which is cool.
Oh yes, like so much lore. Cool. So that's cool that you got in. So you first noticed the game and got interested because of the physical aspects to it.
Yeah, I'm a very tactile, visual person, especially with games. I love a good mini. I'm a sucker for CMON. I have no shame. I love that stuff. And
sure.
And the paint jobs that people do, just with artist brain, and especially for someone who doesn't deal in paint and color, I'm always just blown away by what people can accomplish. Mm-hmm. So it just makes me want to. Even the poses that people can do, because I didn't know going in that so many of the poses are based on the gamers and how they want them to because until I got my little orc army, I didn't know how customizable it was, right? So I got a giant bag of crap that I don't know what to do with, and that was just leftover limbs and stuff. So it's great.
Oh yeah, especially orcs. Yeah, you get a lot of extra parts with your orcs. So when you decided, okay, this is something that looks interesting, what was your next step? How did you determine what faction you were going to look at, what models you liked? What was the path you went on there?
I am a silly boy. So I was initially my in is always where the humor is. So orcs were the only way for me to go. Cause so much of everything I'd ever heard about the universe is just so dark and grim and ridiculous and and anger. And I was like, these guys think red makes shit go faster. I'm in 100%. These are my boys. And it's and there's a sort of a Pratchett-ish kind of tongue-in-cheek attitude about everything surrounding them, and I just I love that. It's they are the ridiculous in this bottle of this otherwise very serious dark universe. So I wanted them, and I think visually they're the closest to fantasy things to me. And I think we talked about this too, because I have this frustration across all realms of pop culture where people love making dwarves extinct. And I don't know why they're my favorite. And so I was just oh man, I wish there was a dwarf army, and there just isn't. They're always dead.
Yeah. There used to be space dwarves, but not currently.
Yeah.
They might come back.
If they do, they have my money. All of it. I'll do it.
Yeah, and it's interesting because one of the projects, one of the many side projects I'm working on is I wanted to come up with a quiz, or there's a flow chart that we've been looking at that somebody online made. But if I'm talking to somebody who is totally new to Warhammer and I want to be hey, what let's talk about cool stuff and what you might be interested, just as a way to introduce people into the factions. And one of the things that I think about is some kind of a question of do you like a little bit of fantasy in your sci-fi? And then, because that could then branch into obviously orcs and Eldar, because they are space elves. But as you say, even though the Eldar are space elves, they definitely look very futuristic and high tech. They don't look like fantasy miniatures for the most part. Some of them do, but
I liked the Harlequin ones. I remember them distinctly. Someday I will get a set of them too.
Harlequins they're very good. They're amazing in kill team. Cool. Okay, so all right. So you looked at the factions. You decided on orcs for a number of reasons. So how did you go about starting your army in your collection? Because that's another thing that a lot of people have questions about. Like, okay, if I'm going to get into this, how do I do it? There's so much stuff. What do I buy? So how did you do it?
I was very lucky, and somebody heard me talking about it on stream, and somebody bought me an orc box and sent it to us at the studio. So I got this one, the little start collecting orcs box is what I got. And then I spent a lot of nights just kind of streaming, gluing them together, cutting them out, doing stuff, forgetting to shave off seam lines, all the good stuff. You need a couple of views. Fun.
Nice.
Yeah. Had help on these, but my friend Andrew is actually really good at painting, so I have decided I'm just going to pass off all of my minis to him and hope for the best. But I think a starter box in any capacity is always your friend, because it gives you just enough to get started, and also to decide if you like it and want to dive in deeper. Yes. As opposed to like piecemealing a bunch of little bits in boxes, which is very tempting, especially with some of the sculpts out there. It's like I'm always window shopping, right? So I'm always like, oh, I could, but I should probably play more than 5 games before I buy like 13 more armies. Yeah,
that's definitely a thing that happens. It's like you look at the entire range, even in one army, and you're like, oh, that looks cool. But at the end of the day, it's like, all right, if I'm in this to play the game, then I need to get units that I can actually play together and make work. Or you could get into this just for the modeling aspects and for the painting aspects, and then it doesn't matter. It just sort of depends on what you want to get out of it.
Yeah.
And we do talk about how, and this is not a secret. This game is not cheap. If you are going to buy a bunch of miniatures, it's going to cost you. But that being said, there are ways that you can find deals. There are a lot of people out there with miniatures, units, even entire armies that they don't want or need anymore. There's a lot of secondhand buying, selling, trading in the Warhammer community. There's actually, so I'm in pretty much all I use Facebook for anymore are Warhammer groups, a lot of different kinds of Warhammer groups. But in one of the biggest ones, a mother somewhere, I think it was in the Midwest, but she said, my young son saw something Warhammer and is really into it, so we bought this starter. What would you suggest as where could we go from there? What armies are fun? And as much as we talk about how there are less desirable people in the Warhammer community, and there are, this post got just a million responses. One of the first ones was some guy who's been playing forever and said, you know what? I've got a spare orc army that I literally never play. Can I send it to you? And then all these people piled on. Oh, I've got this I can send, and it turned into like this really cool like community moment. It was nice to see.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And especially because on other days we hear not so nice things about people in the Warhammer community.
Not as in to know.
Yeah,
I believe it. It's like anything, right? Anything that people can get passionate about, people can.
Yeah, and Warhammer especially, it's because it's been around, for 30 years, and it's mostly like older white dudes, and Anyway, but we are combating that, one step at a time. That's why, as I just was talking about, I'm a big proponent. I love Warhammer. I think it's really fun. I like to teach everybody I meet how to play because I want more fun people in the community. If I can bring them in and trick them to get started, then I will. Okay, so you saw the miniatures. You got excited. You found a faction that you liked. How far did you go into learning like the lore and reading background information?
I got the book. I spent a lot of time on the wiki to kind of understand it a little bit more. But I also know, like, I know there are books, and I feel like the way that my brain processes information, I might need narrative in order to actually digest. So I think that's the thing. It's like, because in the moment, I'm able to kind of cram information and then apply it. I'm good at that. But then a week from then, it's gone. So I remember like minor details, like I know they are spores when they get killed and they float around, they repopulate and stuff, which is super fun. And I like a lot of what I found, and it's cool. I know for me, I feel like the the general mood is very not my personality, but the gaming aspect is very much my personality.
Sure.
Like, it's such like this sort of like angry, fighty, rar. And I'm just like, I like at some point I do want to try Fantasy Warhammer too, because I think that's where my soul is for that sort of stuff. But it's still so freaking cool. Like the galaxy is huge, everything splits out, it's everywhere. But yeah, I like that there's plenty of free information out there. I got the rule book because I just wanted something easily accessible that I can touch.
Sure.
And I wanted to also get, but I didn't get because they have specific books for the factions as well. And like the Orcs book had just come out around the same time I got this army. I was like, well, once I build and paint this army, I'll get this book. And let me show you the state of my army. It's like, it's a hodgepodge. Some of them are done, some of them are not.
That's all right. That's all right. Yeah. There was a question in the chat. Is there a place to send armies we no longer want? Well, like I said, if you are on Facebook, there are a multitude of Facebook groups. There's a Warhammer 40K buy, sell, trade group where, people literally say, I have this entire army. I don't want it anymore. Does anybody want it to trade or to buy? So yes, definitely. I highly recommend checking that out. And there are people that are all over the world. Because that's also something really interesting, as Tiny Chris said about shipping. There are people in parts of the world where, as expensive as we think Warhammer is, in certain parts of the world, it is many times more expensive just because of shipping and tariffs. Australia is I don't understand how anybody in Australia buys anything based on what I see about them talking about prices. So you'll see people in Australia saying like people in Australia, from what I've seen, they're desperate to buy entire armies from people rather than having to buy things individually and have it shipped. Crazy
Something
time.
I thought was really cool when I was I did a UK trip, and there were Games Workshop stores like all over the place. It was super cool. Like I just kept hopping in, and what I loved is like there were people there whose job it was to just like sit down and play with you, or sit down and help you paint, or sit down, like walk around and help you pick and like talk you through everything. I was like, oh my gosh, like I wish the hobby stores near me were a little bit more like that. Instead of just like the cold, it's not a cold stare, but it's a stare of like, I want to interact, but I don't know how to interact with you. So I'm just going to look at you until you say something. But if you don't say something, I'm not going to say anything. And like, that's the general vibe I get. So I've just learned to be like, hey, I don't know what I don't know. So help me.
Right.
And then people get really excited.
Games Workshop stores here, there's some really good ones, and there's some really good people who work in them. But at the same time, it can certainly be intimidating to walk into one of those. And the people who work at the GW stores, like they are salespeople first. They have quotas they need to reach. So yes, they are. While they would love to help you build and paint things, they would prefer that first you bought something and then they'll help you build and paint it. But it's a business. What are you gonna do? As Rabbit Wombat said, there are some like really, really great people who work at some of these stores, which is cool.
Oh, for sure.
Now, when I was asking you about how far you got into the lore, I certainly wasn't. There is no shame in being familiar with the lore to a small extent or to a large extent.
Oh yes,
small. Or okay, to a lesser or greater degree. Let's put it that way. Yeah. So I do a lot of talking about how inclusive my hobby is, at least. And I like to tell people that if you, if all you do is play Warhammer video games, if all you do is read Warhammer novels, but you never play any games whatsoever, if all you do is buy miniatures and build and paint them, or if you play the game, but you don't read any of the books, every single one of those is perfectly acceptable. You are a hobbyist. You are in my Warhammer hobby, and I love you. It's great. You don't have to do everything. There's a lot that's out there if you want to do it, but whatever your part of it is fantastic. And there are people who get into this they just want to play a game. They don't want to go and read a million novels and know every character that's ever been, because it doesn't matter. They just want to play a game, and that's also cool.
I think that's true of most hobbies, especially tabletop stuff, right? It's like all of it's all valid.
You hope so, yeah. You hope so. So in your orcs that you've done so far, have you gotten into customizing or thinking about what you might do in a customization capacity or a project?
Like customization is just as far as like general look or like...
anything.
Okay.
Yeah, because again, that can run the gamut from actually using different parts from your models, or paint or decorations or basing or really anything.
I really like the look of rusty things, so that was something that I definitely wanted to employ. So this is the guy. Let me see if I can actually get him in there, because this is the only one that I'm actually happy with. This is this dude. Good. It's pretty
cool.
Fun. This is the one I had a lot of help with. But like, if I could make them all look like that, that was cool. But then, you get crazy and tired and sleepy, and then you make like weird Santa orcs and shit. So you never know. And so this army is all about just like, I want to figure out what I like. So I haven't quite done that yet.
Sure.
But I think the more random bits, the happier I am. Especially with like this little dude. I like the anthropomorphization of all of their machinery, and that's something that I think I would heavily lean into. I like the idea of these really clunky mechs.
Yeah.
I remember I stalled out at the stickers. This is like, cool, I've got orcs. Those are my guys. And then they're like, why do all these stickers look different? Oh no. There's like more branches.
Yeah. Decals for models, that's a whole other thing. I actually have never done them. One day I might. Friends of mine are experts and have given me a bunch of advice, but I have not yet embarked upon that path. You need 2 different types of solutions to get them on the right way, and it's a 20-step process.
Oh snap!
They can look great.
I'm glad I didn't try. Yay.
but yeah, it's a lot. One day I'll get to that part of the hobby. Yeah, I love orcs. Yeah, for just the sheer amount of craziness you can do with them, and again, because their kits have so many extra parts. Typically, I built a squad of what were they? Ludas, I think it was. So the guys with the big guns, and then I built a vehicle, and I took all the extra parts from the first kit and I just stuck it all over the vehicle. So it's just bits of stuff everywhere. And I was thinking I didn't have the right opportunity in that project that I was working on, but there was a great arm that I don't remember what kit it was, but it was just a full orc arm with a pistol at the end of it. And I had the idea, oh my God, the next vehicle I make, I'm just going to cut a hole in the vehicle and have that arm sticking out. Because why not? But there could definitely be orcs inside. They can't see out, but they're just leaning their arms out, shooting at things. So that's definitely going to be on the next orc thing I make.
I like
so for me, the orcs are my basically my third army. And yeah, I got that secondhand. A friend of mine was getting out of the hobby. She was moving on to a different hobby, and she was looking to get rid of her orc army. And I was like, well, I'll take it. So yeah, I just got a bunch of random stuff from her, and then other stuff that I've added to it, which has been pretty fun. And again, especially with orcs, it does not matter if this orc next to this orc, they don't look exactly the same and they're not decorated the same. It doesn't matter.
I definitely attached the wrong torsos a couple times before I figured it out. So yeah.
It is all fun. Yeah. And that's the certain factions lend themselves more to that. Obviously the orcs are the epitome of just random cobbled together things, and it looks great.
I'm also a big fan of the buzzsaws. So at some point, if I have lots of bits, I just want a full thing of nothing but buzzsaws, like both arms, a leg, maybe just everything.
Yep. Yes. Excellent. Okay, so usually we take a look at some of the news and announcements that have been coming out from Games Workshop, because it's cool to see what fun new things there are. So let me see if this will work. I think this is working. Okay, and this runs the gamut, so we can look at what's happening for the fantasy game, for all the different stuff. Cool. So first off. So this is for the Horus Heresy game, which again takes place in the 30K era of the overall 40K system.
There's a 30K.
There is. Yeah. So essentially, when you're talking about 40K and you're talking about all of the humans, the Emperor is in charge, but he is entombed on the Golden Throne because of what happened 10,000 years prior in 30K, which was the time of the Horus Heresy, when half of the Space Marines turned to chaos, and then there was a civil war, and that messed up a bunch of stuff.
Got it.
So 30K, the Horus Heresy, it's mostly Space Marines fighting other Space Marines. You can play some demons. You can play a little bit of Xenos in it, but it's mostly Space Marines. The really cool thing is you get these incredible models that are just unbelievable. Just about all of the Horus Heresy stuff is from Forge World. So all of this is resin. They can get better detail on this than the plastic stuff you get from Games Workshop in general, mostly. But yeah, so these are new Imperial Fists models coming out, and they're super rad. For a while, I was playing. My Space Marines were a successor chapter of Imperial Fists, so I'd always look at these things and be like, how much of the original stuff do I want on mine? Could I use these in my army? But I've since moved away from that. But they are cool.
Are the majority of the armies in 30K this sort of like in between style of like mech and old school like fantasy?
They definitely have a lot of like a lot of heraldry and stuff to them for sure. Depending on the legion, some of them are more or less Baroque. Some of them, like the Night Lords, have like people's severed skin attached to their armor and like all sorts of and bat wings on things. So yeah, they've done a good job, making each army fairly distinct as far as their sculpted look.
Cool.
Yeah. So these guys, and then this came out. So the previous announcement was for a very specific character from the 30K era, and that is this guy Malagurst. So I always hear about Space Marines being super big and tough and strong, and they can withstand just about any wound that happens. And if they can't, then they get stuck into a dreadnought body. Malagurst is an interesting exception. He got wounded, and it never healed properly, so he became Malagurst the Twisted. But as we find out, he's not actually twisted because of his body being hurt. It's because of his brain. He's all screwed up in his brain. And so finally, we have a model for him, and it's just super cool. And again, he's not one of the very first, but he's one of the first who specifically works for Horus, who dabbled in chaos a little bit even before Horus did. So he's got elements of, like, if you look at his knee pad, there's some like weird little runes on there, and obviously he's got his crazy banner, whatever you call that thing, personal icon. So yeah, so there's some really cool things in the 30K stuff, and also even the legions that we know will turn traitor. Most of them, you can play them as either loyalists or traitors in that era of gaming, which is kind of cool. Sometimes there are limits, like you can't use this character in this army if it's a traitor version or if it's a loyalist version. But there are some neat things you can do there with that.
And is that like different loadouts if they're traitors versus loyalists, like different like
sometimes? Yeah. Like I said, it mostly has to do with specific characters you're using, but yeah, actually, so I play Emperor's Children. They're my favorite Space Marine legion in 30K, and then they become a Chaos Space Marine war band in 40K. I really like Emperor's Children. So in 30K, you can play them as either loyalist or traitor. And if you're playing their leader, Fulgrim, depending on which one, he'll have a different sword, because at the beginning of that era, he was using a sword that was made by one of the other Primarchs. But then when he fell to chaos, partly it was because he found like this magical sword that enticed him. So then technically you're supposed to use that one if he's the traitor version.
Sweet.
Ruiner, thank you so much for that resubscription. I appreciate that. Yeah. Right, this guy here, not so stealthy. He's a little funky when he walks around.
that big old eye and the big arrow. It's like he's right here.
It's me.
Found me.
We talked about before. There's a wide range of video games for Warhammer that cover just everything, every different version of fantasy, of future, of like little parts of all those worlds. There are video games for them. If you're a video game player at all, you've probably seen at least one Warhammer related game. This past week, they released some new game trailers and information for Total War 3, which is a fantasy game. And if you're really interested, you can go and watch the trailer, but it has some really cool stuff. A lot of bears, just a whole bunch of bears.
Ooh, bears. They're armored.
They're armored, yeah. And then there's like, and there's a giant elemental bear that appears and attacks things. Yes, people are very excited. Oh, yeah. And this is one of there's the elemental bear.
What?
So yeah, so many bears. So yeah, this is one of these games where you have gigantic armies that you're playing in the game. Okay, so I've talked about this before. I am not a video game player. I have a couple of games around. I play a logic game. That's my fun game. But this series, the Total War series, very, very popular with fans. I know that some of them have been better than others, but there are people who like this is their thing. They've been playing for years and years and years. So I think a lot of people are going to be excited about this one.
Functionally, is it like a video game version of a tabletop? Like, is it similar? Like you place your troops, its distance, and all that stuff, or is it more video gamey?
I think it's a little bit more video gamey, but yeah, it essentially you are playing an entire army, so you have different units that you're fielding. I don't know much more than that. I know it's not like the rules aren't like the tabletop game, so it's not compatible in that way. But I don't know much more about the actual logistics of it. I've watched a bunch of trailers and cutscenes and things like that for these games because those are always really cool. But yeah. So anyway, if you're into video games, then you should probably go check that out. As Merquirky says, for 40K, recommend Space Marine. Yeah, Space Marine is cool. That is a game I actually have tried. I played a little bit of it. You play an Ultramarine, a Space Marine who is just tearing through endless seas of orcs and then chaos later on. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
I think it was a card game. There's an app Warhammer game that I was playing for a little bit. That was pretty fun. Yeah, there are a couple of card-based games now. There was a game where you where you play knights. There was a mobile game, and yeah, there's so many games, and they're always coming out with more. It's crazy. They work with a bunch of different studios, lots and lots of video game content. In the UK, Games Workshop stores have been closed for a while during the pandemic, so they're doing a big celebration as they reopen. So if you are on that side of the pond, as they say, anytime Games Workshop is celebrating anything, they're going to have exclusive things to sell you. So this case, it is no different. Typically, every Games Workshop or Warhammer store in the entire world, every year they celebrate the store's birthday. And it's literally like, this is when the store opened, so a year later, it's the birthday. And on the birthday, you can buy exclusive models and things that they'll ship out to each store for its birthday. It's a big deal for a lot of people because the models are actually really cool. So in this case, every store in the UK that's reopening is getting all of this stuff to be like a new anniversary because they missed out during the year when it was closed. So there's this Necron that's pretty cool. There's this crazy Stormcast Eternal with this Minotaur head. The models are rad, even if you don't necessarily play these factions. This is the model. There was a little bit of controversy when this model was first announced. The morning when the announcement came out, Games Workshop used
non-binary pronouns for this model, and then during that day, the description changed to male pronouns. There are all sorts of conspiracy theories or questions as to why that happened, but it happened. And you know what? At some stores, they do have cake. You have to call ahead
for the birthday. That's so cute.
Yep. I do know that the store here in Glendale, that on at least one of their birthday events, they did have cake. So it's possible. You just have to double check. So again, those are the exclusive things you can get. And then if you're spending a bunch of money, you can unlock all of these things. So like if you spend, $100, you might get the book, and at $200 you get the dice thing. It's crazy. They just want you to spend and spend and spend and spend as usual. So those are all the things you can get in the UK. No word if they're going to do anything like that in the US here. Most of the stores here have been open in some capacity. The stores haven't had to close as much as they have over there, or at least it seems like it. Danny, I don't know if you've heard about the new mega store and cafe coming to Monrovia.
I have not.
Someone is very excited about this. So in the UK, Games Workshop has their flagship store, the what is it called? Warhammer World. In where is it? I forget where it is. Anyway, so they have this gigantic store, and it's part museum, part gaming space, part convention center, all this stuff. So in the United States, for the longest time, we didn't have any special, unique stores. Obviously, some are going to be bigger than others, but was it 3 years ago? 3 years ago, they opened around there. They opened the Warhammer Store and Cafe, the Warhammer Citadel, they called it, in Texas. So very centrally located, and it's bigger. With Hyper, a few of us actually went to the grand opening, which was super fun.
Oh, cool.
The store wasn't quite as large as I was expecting, but maybe that's just because I'm from California and everything is. If they want to build something huge here, it's going to be massive. But for a while, that was and we have people in the chat who were there with us, and it was a super fun time. I was just looking at some pictures from that trip. So anyway, there is another one of those types of stores that's opening here, and it just happens to be in Monrovia, which is about a half an hour due east of me. And it is opening up in just about a month, and it's going to be another one of these flagship stores. So it's going to have all of the normal stuff that you'd find in a Games Workshop store, plus a section where you can buy Black Library books. They'll have a big selection of novels. There's even going to be a Forge World section, so you can buy all of the resin stuff that normally is only from the website, mail order, as they used to call it. So it's really exciting. There might be people going to that grand opening in a few weeks. We'll see.
Sweet.
Yeah, and at that opening, there'll be a whole bunch of. Okay, so what we just looked at here on this website, these are all of the things that happen at the anniversary or birthdays of stores. When a new store opens, it's a completely different set of exclusives that you can get.
Oh no!
Yeah, it's a whole thing. So those will be there in Monrovia next month.
Are they unique to each store? Or is it like this year these are the birthday minis?
Thankfully, it's more like for everybody is going to get the same things. Although with that being said, for these big unique kind of stores, there are some specific items that are special to that store. So there were what was it? There were dice. So there's a logo for these new stores where it's like 2 cups. Thanks, Merc Quirky. Thanks for hanging out. Appreciate that. So there's the logo is the 2 cups. One of them is a 40K cup, the other is an Age of Sigmar cup. So that was on the dice because it's the store and cafe technically. So it's good stuff. We've been talking about the upcoming store. We'll talk about it more in the coming weeks. Because we're still in COVID times, they've announced that all of these exclusive items, that you won't have to just be there on the first day. They're going to have them available for the first couple weeks, essentially, to hopefully limit how many people are trying to cram into the store at any given time. I still is probably going to be very, very crowded on that first day. But what are you going to do? Although, I mean, CDC basically came out yesterday and said nobody needs to wear masks anymore. So who knows? Who knows what will happen next week? You never know. Cool. So Necromunda, again, we talk about, we have the giant games, and then we have all of these other games that interact with that universe. Excuse me. So Necromunda is technically, it's what Games Workshop calls a boxed game. So it's a game that you can buy in a box, but then there are a billion other model kits and accessories you can buy for it. It's a game that takes place in the Warhammer 40k universe, and it's on a planet that is overrun with these gigantic cities. They're called hives. They're essentially continent-sized cities, and they're super gross, and at the lower levels, it's all monsters and gangs fighting. And so it's the game is you pick a gang and you fight other gangs, which is super cool. It's really interesting. The lore for this stuff is amazing. There's an entire series of novels about Necromunda. It's been going on forever, so it's really cool. But in addition to the gangs each being really visually unique, there are also special characters that you can bring into the game that are either, like, again, literally aliens and monsters, or in this case, somebody from a higher level in the hive. And this is, what is her name here? Wow. She's got some fancy names. She's some lady. But yeah, so here's the artwork. And like, okay, well, that's pretty cool. And the model is amazing.
Whoa.
So this is Lady Credo. And again, she's like she's an upper crust aristocrat slumming it down in the lower levels. Or is she there to collect body parts or find something? Who knows? They're all up to weird stuff. But model is fantastic. Everybody's going crazy for this model. And again, the cool thing about Necromunda is this is a model that you just buy individually, and you can either play it in your as like an additional person with your gang, or you could use this for something else. Swap it out for another model and a different thing. But it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I like these designs a lot. Like two at the top plus her. Visually, this is fun. I like that it's kind of like all around the place as far as like time period inspiration. Like they're super like 80s punk, and she's all Victorian. Like
yeah. And of course, you can paint these however you want. So if you had your own color scheme you were looking at, you're free to do so.
Yeah. So you say this one's like a smaller game within. Is this still like following basic Warhammer rules? You're just playing with these characters, or is it something closer to like Kill Team, where it's its own baby? It's
more like Kill Team. It has its excuse me. Yeah, it has its own different rules set. That's
cool.
Yeah. So something different to learn. Yeah. And the cool thing about a game like Necromunda is it's a little bit of investment to get the rule book and like a board and some terrain for it. But after that, each army is a gang, and you can buy a gang box for I think like $35, and like that's your army. So if you don't want now, of course you can buy additional things.
Naturally.
Yeah, naturally. For each gang that comes out, then they'll offer other upgrade packs for that gang. So other weapons you can swap out and accessories. Then they'll make like specific dice that are branded for your gang and cards and this and this and that. But yes, I believe it is possible to play this game with less of an investment. Let's put it that way. So that one's cool. And then speaking of cool ladies with really amazing sculpts, just previewed last week on the Warhammer Fest, which we'll talk about again more in just a second, the Sisters of Battle. Now, Danny, are you familiar with the Sisters of Battle, the Adepta Sororitas?
I am not. Okay. Maybe. I feel these are recent, right? There was like a whole announcement about them. I remember, I think, right? They're new to me, but
sure, yeah,
last year or so.
So these are in the Imperium of Man. So in the humans in Warhammer 40k, And again, we don't say good guys because there are no good guys in Warhammer 40k.
It's very Dune like that.
Yeah, exactly. So in the Imperium, there are a bunch of sub-factions within the Imperium of Man. And one of them is the Adepta Sororitas, the Sisters of Battle. Sorry, the children are transitioning to new activities right now. Generally in the Inquisition, so the religious branch of the government, there was a rule written down in the universe in ancient times that they shall have no men at arms. Well, what are you going to do when you hear a rule that says no men at arms? I get it, wink, wink. You have women. You have an army of women. So that's where we get the Sisters of Battle. And they're awesome. They've always looked really cool. Games Workshop went many, many years without updating their models, and then it showed. The old models, they look old. They're not in the current style of models. The details were not as precise, and they definitely needed a rules update. And so they got that a couple of years ago. Games Workshop unleashed an entire new plastic line for the Sisters. All the old stuff was in metal, which is very expensive, very heavy, much more difficult to do all your cool hobby stuff. So they got a whole new army, and Games Workshop is absolutely supporting that faction with more and more releases, which is good or bad depending on how much you're into that army and want to save your money. But we got this lady who is Morvenn Vahl. So not only is Morvenn Vahl the head of the entire Adepta Sororitas, so she's the top Sister of Battle, but she's also a High Lord of Terra. All right, we're going to get a little bit into the weeds as far as the lore. So the Imperium of Man is technically run, owned, and operated by the Emperor. But he is kind of a vegetable on the Golden Throne. He doesn't do a lot of day-to-day stuff. His entire essence is focused entirely on essentially like the astral plane, trying to hold back demons from invading and destroying all of humanity, and also using his power to basically as a lighthouse for people traveling through the warp. Essentially. He also devours 1,000 people's souls every day to power that lighthouse, but we don't really talk about that so much. That's like one of those things that we don't talk about that. He's in a coma. He's more or less dying. Who knows? It would be great if they updated that story at some point, but they probably never will. So just below the Emperor now is Guilliman, the Primarch of the Ultramarines, who also had been essentially dead for 8,000 years. He just came back, so he's back to life. He's kicking around. So he inserted himself back into the power structure just under the Emperor. Just under him, then, are the High Lords of Terra, and it's a group. I can never remember exactly how many there are. Something around 12, but essentially it's the leaders of every branch of the important parts of the Imperium of Man. You've got like the head of the Assassins, the head of the Inquisition, the person who's in charge of like the defense of Terra and the solar system. And these people decide it's bureaucracy. It's endless bureaucracy in the Imperium of Man. But I think this is the first time we've actually had a High Lord of Terra as a playable miniature, which is kind of interesting as far as like lore stuff. And then like, well, if they continue the story, what if she dies? How does that affect things? Which could be interesting. So during Warhammer Fest 2 weeks ago, they revealed this, and her model is awesome. Now
she's a walking cathedral. That's so freaking
exactly
cool.
Yeah. Now, okay, can you see her head sticking out there? And is there no helmet on that head? Yes, but again, this is a long-running thing in Warhammer that the higher the rank you have, if you're a human especially, you don't wear a helmet. It's dumb, but we just got to get over it. It happens.
You're just that untouchable, you know.
Right? Exactly. 100%. Now, there's also a lot of criticism about this model that her arms are exposed, and she's operating the controls for the mech's arms outside of the suit itself. But again, if her head is exposed, who cares if her arms are exposed? Like, it doesn't bother me at all. I've shown this is something actually that's shown up in other sci-fi properties a lot. Power armor, where the wearer's arms are outside to operate like the robot parts. I think it's cool. Like I said,
you're not going to be worried about the little arms. You're going to be worried about the big ones that are going to shoot your face off. So exactly. I'm cool with this. And also, like, I would say tactically, she's still probably fine because those arms, that range of motion would be enough to cover her own arms in need of, you know.
Right. If she had to cover up, yeah.
He's fine. I feel like above her head is a little I feel that's true.
Okay, good. I'm glad.
As someone who knows literally nothing, I'm on board.
Well, yeah, but it's all aesthetics. But yeah, I mean, when I tell you that there were people who were like furious about this, like, why are her arms exposed? This is ridiculous.
Because it's dope.
Yeah, the immersion is broken. I can't do this. It's like, oh, really, people? Come on. So what she's wearing is an example of a Paragon war suit, which is going to be a unit that you can buy for the Sisters of Battle. It's not out yet. They previewed it beforehand. The standard Paragon war suits are not as ornate as this one. They're still cool. They've got the basic, power armor outline with the big arms and then the little arms to control them. Hers is special. Now, you always have to do a little bit of mind bending when Games Workshop comes out with a new type of unit that was supposed to have existed the whole time. Mm-hmm. But again, this is how we get cool new models and things. I just actually read a novel that takes place in the Horus Heresy era, and it's all about knights and titans. And very prominently in that story does it feature a bunch of models that just came out recently. I'm saying, all right, well, we can pretend they were there the whole time. It's fine. Yeah. So anyway, so these have been around.
You pretty good.
Yeah. Exactly. So not only have these been around a long time, but this specific war suit has been kicking around for a long time. It has its own name. It's the Purgator Mirabilis. Oh, and again, the Latin of Games Workshop is so bad, but it's fine. It's fine. We're not going to get off on that topic. So in this article, we got a taste of the rules for this lady, and it's amazing. We don't know how many points she's going to be, so we don't know how balanced it is as far as how much she costs to include in your army. But her stat line is incredible. She's got an 8-inch move. Most infantry move 6 inches. She's got 2 up for melee and shooting, which is, again, the best that you can have. Her strength and toughness are both 5, which is better than a Space Marine. She has 8 wounds, which is an insane amount of wounds. 5 attacks in melee, leadership 9, which is standard, and a 2-up armor save. So she's almost as tough as a tank all by herself, which is fantastic. And then it just adds on to there. She's got a 4-up invulnerable save, which is huge. She also so each time this model would lose a wound as a result of a mortal wound, roll a d6 on a 4-up. That wound is not lost. So that basically, like, she's 50-50 immune to psychic damage or any other kind of crazy damage. And then she's got the Holy Aegis that says each time an attack is allocated, have the damage characteristic. So she is immensely tough and powerful, which is very cool to see that. And then it's like, okay, well, so she's tough, but maybe her weapons aren't that strong. Oh, no, hold on. So she's got a lance. And as we've seen recently, a lot of the big melee characters, they'll have a weapon that can do different types of attacks. Because traditionally, you would be kind of a pain. So if you had like a knight. So this knight, one of its possible armaments is a gigantic chainsaw. And you'd always have to be worried, like, okay, if this chainsaw does like really high damage, well, what if I'm fighting a horde of orcs? I'm going to be wasting that high damage because I can only hit a couple times, and yeah, I'm going to chew through an orc each time, but I'm going to be stuck with this giant horde in front of me. So they've made it so that a lot of these big weapons have two different ways they can hit. And so here we are with the Lance of Illumination. So we can do a sweeping blow. So instead of each attack just doing one attack, each attack does 2 attacks. So her base attacks of 5 turns into 10. So if she's stuck fighting a horde of orc boys, she can just slice through them. Now, again, it's strength of only user, which is 5, AP minus 2, and 1 damage. But again, that's great for infantry fighting. And then she's got the lunging strike. So if you want, you can only do 5 attacks, but they're hitting at strength 8, AP minus 3, damage 3, and if you get that wound roll of 6, it's going to be an additional mortal wound on top of the damage. And again, this is the kind of weapon stats we'd see on something like a knight, something huge. So I'm very impressed. She's also got missile launchers that, again, as with most missile launchers, you can do them in 2 different ways, depending on, again, if you're doing if you're fighting infantry or fighting something heavier, and more. And she buffs up everybody nearby. It's just, yeah.
She's awesome. More details in that picture too. That she's got gargoyles and she's got
scripture
on her pauldron. Like this.
Yep.
Nuts.
Yeah. So typically that will on her right shoulder, all the lettering, those are all of the battlefields where that armor has fought before.
Oh, cool.
Typically, that's usually how it goes. But yeah, tons and tons of detail. People have also noticed. So this picture that we're looking at here is new for this preview, and if you look really, really closely, I take their word for it, but it looks like this head sculpt is not the same as this head sculpt. I mean, I guess it.
I think so.
I don't know.
You're right. Yeah, because one's kind of snarling and the other one's kind of placid.
I mean, it's a little bit turned, and if they were painted by somebody different, who knows? But every time that happens, everybody's like, they're getting out their magnifying glasses. Which one is the actual model kit going to come with? What am I pre-ordering? We do know, though, that this kit will have an option for a helmeted head. So if you don't like her head being exposed, you can put the helmet on. It'll be okay.
We call that a shut-up accessory.
Exactly. And welcome, Garamon the Grouch.
Hey, Garamon, how's it going?
We're talking all things Warhammer. We're looking at recent news and announcements. So yeah, this character, she is super strong. Assuming she's not an insane amount of points. I mean, thus far, she looks like an auto-include if you're running a Sisters of Battle army. So hopefully they cost her appropriately. Mm-hmm. Also, if I had to guess how much she's going to cost, probably I'm going to guess like in the $50 range. So individual characters these days are about $35. If they're a little bit bigger and have like a decorated base, they're in the $40 to $45 range. She's bigger. Yeah. Yeah. So Garamon grew up on the 40K heavy metal stuff. Awesome. Yeah. So there's a whole, even within 40K and all of the just the sheer amount of stuff that Games Workshop puts out for it, there have been several very distinct art styles and painting styles that they've shown, and the heavy metal is one of the classic ones. And there's still people to this day who paint it in that retro kind of style, which is super cool. Okay. Events. Now, as we've talked about, you can go to a Warhammer store. You can sit in the store and play, as long as you buy stuff. But yeah, and stores will have games and things going on. There are, of course, tournaments and things that happen both in the United States and in the UK. You'll have officially sponsored ones by Games Workshop. You'll have independent ones. You'll have sort of like cross between like Adepticon, which is here in the United States where is it? It's in the Midwest somewhere. I always forget where. I've never actually been. But that's it's an independent convention, but Games Workshop has an official event there, so it's kind of a mix. So they just announced Warhammer events are coming back. Oh, and also painting and hobby events. So Golden Demon is Games Workshop's famous paint competition. So you can paint up your stuff and enter it into the Golden Demon. The winners get all sorts of crazy prizes, like a statue of the Golden Demon. There's a sword you can get if you win one of the things. It's bonkers. Because of course, I mean, with this kind of subject matter, it's got to be something wacky like that. So Golden Demon is coming back in 2022, and then this thing. So this is brand new, crazy announcement. The Warhammer Roadshow USA. So they're going to have tournaments going on in different places in the country, culminating with a final championship event here in Los Angeles.
Cool.
Yeah. So that's exciting. And we'll see how all that goes. They've announced some details, but obviously not everything yet. There's no, usually in these things, like you can, I forget how it's part invitational, part if you win at a local event, then you can play at the next higher one and then get to the bigger events. So we don't know exactly how you're going to get into these things or when exactly they will be, but it is interesting. It is also cool that it's going to be right here in our backyard.
Yeah. Do you think they'll have coverage? Do you think they'll stream it or something like that as well? Or
yeah, Games Workshop does have its own Twitch channel where they do a lot of they do a lot of hobby content, and then when, at least before the pandemic, when there were events happening, they would stream events like at the Warhammer World in England. So in theory, they will be. Of course, there are lots of other streamers now who stream Warhammer content who are very fun and engaging. So maybe they'll bring other people in as well. Who knows? Who knows? We'll find out, right? But yeah, it would be super cool. And I'm not a tournament player. I love playing 40K. I love playing it with my friends and in casual settings. Again, I work on all these crazy conversions, so my models don't always have only official Games Workshop parts, which they frown on at official events. But it'd be cool just to be able to go to one of these things and check it out. And of course, at any special event like this, there are going to be exclusives that they're going to sell and all the other reasons why you'd want to go to an event anyway.
Darrow, some water for you.
Yes, thank you so much. All right, wrapping up. So Warhammer Fest is, again, typically most years, it's a giant convention that Games Workshop holds near their headquarters. This year it was all online. It was an entire week of reveals and discussions. So this was a cool article. They just sort of summed up what the big things were. Age of Sigmar, it's getting an entire new edition. Although now people always get crazy because new editions, you worry, oh my God, does that mean I need to buy all new books? Typically you can still play your models even in new editions, but normally it's new books, new rule book, new books for each army. Oh my God, what am I going to do? This book that I just bought a couple months ago, do I literally just throw it in the trash? But no. It sounds like with Age of Sigmar, they're doing what happened with 40K. So if you're new to 40K, or if you haven't been playing the latest stuff, we are currently in 9th edition that started last year. But 9th edition is really an evolution of 8th edition. So it's kind of like an 8.5. Okay. Much of the content that you used in 8th edition, you can still use until it gets replaced. And they've done that. So there are a few codexes out so far. Of course, Space Marines. Necrons were like the poster Xenos faction at the beginning, so they got a book. They're putting out a book every few months. And so eventually everybody will have a 9th edition codex. But if you don't, you still use the 8th edition with some updates that they've provided free to everybody. And so again, it sounds like that's what they're doing with Age of Sigmar. But they're releasing a bunch of new models and new sub-factions within it. We've got these new, what do you call them? Stormcast Eternals. So they're even more people joke about how the Stormcast Eternals are essentially Space Marines in fantasy, and now they're even more Space Marine like. But that's fine. People do love Space Marines. What are you gonna do? So these are, and right, exactly, Sigmarines. Yes, Darrow. Now in Age of Sigmar, unlike 40k, there are pretty much good guys and bad guys. Then there are a bunch of factions that are somewhere in between. But yeah, so these are more of the good guy factions.
Cool.
I have an Age of Sigmar army. It's a small army. I play the dwarf. So in that game, I play the dwarves, and they are basically they're the most sci-fi element in that game. The dwarves wear power armor, and they fly in airships, and they shoot guns at people.
All right. So dwarf with a little bit of gnome thrown in there. I'm
yeah,
down.
yeah. And they're unique too. Well, that, and again, specifically, they're the Caradron overlords. There are more traditional dwarves in that game as well as like berserker dwarves and things. But yeah, the ones I have, they're really interesting because they live in like cloud cities essentially, and their culture is that they never have any of their skin exposed. So they're wearing these power armors that are completely built in. They even have like robotic beards, and some of their beards have guns in them. So yeah, it's pretty neat.
That's great.
Yeah, Rabid Wombat. They're fun. I like them. I've only sat down and played twice, so I don't. I hear that they're good currently. I don't know with this new edition. Who knows? They'll probably be trash, but I like them. I like the models. And then we got things like this Kragnos here. And as I said, that day that this model was announced, it was a day of all centaur-like things. So we've got this guy. We've got this creature who, again, if you look closely, she's a vampire lady from the waist up. And from her waist down, it's like a whole other vampire bat creature. It's super weird. But Age of Sigmar is going hard into vampires right now.
Okay.
So if you like vampires, check it out.
Who does?
Who does?
Oh, so vampires in Sigmar, do they do like life drainy type stuff with their attacks? Are they able to?
I'm not sure. I haven't checked out their rules. The models are amazing, actually, and we'll look at this stuff because a lot of them just started the pre-order today. Then again, Morvenn Vahl, which we just looked at. 40K. I love Games Workshop. They'll try to do teases and hints of things, but they're number one, they're so bad at teasing, and number two, they really want people just to know what they're going to spend money on. So here, there's a new and mysterious battle box coming out, but like clearly that's 1,000 Suns, Sorcerer, and Grey Knights. So it's like, okay, I guess that's what it's going to be.
Yeah,
I don't know what the tease. Yeah, there's like they just gave up on the tease and they just showed you what it's going to be.
Yeah,
but that's fine. Yeah, so lots of psychic stuff going on there. Now again, does it 100% going to be those two? Well, I guess not. Maybe there's going to be some sort of dodge there, but it seems like that's where they're leaning. Gaunt's Ghosts is a series of novels. Well, they're characters in a series of novels from Black Library that people really, really love, and they're getting models. So that's awesome for people who like that. Now, Danny, I don't know if you've seen the new Orcs for 40K.
I have not.
So you've got a bunch of the traditional 40K Orcs.
Yes.
There's a new faction, a new sub-faction of Orcs coming called the Beast Snaggas. And these are, here we'll go to the exact article. Or maybe not. Did I click on the wrong one? I think I clicked on the wrong one. Go back. Here we go. So these Orcs are a little bit more, I don't know if feral is the right word, but they're a little bit more in touch with their wild, savage side. Mm-hmm. That's a weird ad. And it's so weird. So yeah, so they've got, so there's the boss.
Yes. Oh,
and what I think, and the more we see about them, the more cool they get, because at the same time, they are more feral. Like they're not wearing as much armor. They're riding on creatures, but also like a lot of them have cybernetic limbs, which is really cool. So this is going to be, so this is the boss. We've seen a psyker. We've seen a essentially like the pain boy, so the healer of the orcs. We've seen what are going to be the standard.
I have him too.
Troops, and and then these beast riders. So, I mean they're wild. They're super crazy.
Yes, that hair. Giant fish hook too. Dig it.
And again, orcs, because they are fungus, they don't grow hair. So anytime you see hair on an orc, typically they've taken a small creature that has hair and then stuck it onto themselves in some way. So we're not sure exactly how this one has all this hair, but it looks like you can see like stapled. Yeah. So it's purely for fashion.
The more I learn, the more I love them.
They're so great. Yeah, and again with the leg.
Yeah.
And then and then even the grots get in on the action with the little tiny one here. It's so good.
I like that it's still a vehicle. Like it doesn't have it's just a little monopod.
Yep. And they're gonna get their own books, or the orcs are getting a new codex, so they'll be part of that. But yeah, so that's the beast Snaggas. Oh, and then there's other regular, so a new mega armored war boss, which is pretty awesome. Yeah, so definitely some cool orc stuff coming. What's rad about this one, again, just looking at it, is so orcs are not particularly good at shooting, but grots, the little guys, are better at shooting. So I'm assuming that if you play this model, that you'll get better shooting because the grot is actually operating the gun. And that happens on some of the vehicles that have a mix of orcs and grots on them. The guns that the grots are shooting shoot at a better accuracy than the ones that the orcs are shooting, which I think is just a great detail. Oh, and then as they showed, there's a new batch of Astra Militarum coming that actually have some heads for ladies and some different types of features, which is really cool. There's a lady head there.
About to go storm Endor.
So yeah, which is fun. Exciting because we definitely need more diversity, especially here. Again, human troops in 40K, the Astra Militarum. It's literally an army of billions of humans. They're just drafted from all of these worlds. They just take people, throw them into the army, give them the barest of training, put a las gun in their hand, and push them into battle. Millions of them die every day and are recruited every day to replace them. They do not care if you are a man, a woman, what color skin you have, what planet you're from. It's a meat grinder of humanity. So there should definitely be more representation and diversity in the models. And thankfully they are going in that direction, which we like to see. And then I think, and then some more. Okay, so Warhammer Fest was an entire week of all of these crazy reveals, but the things that got the most attention and the most memes that came out of it were the fish, and especially this crab. For some reason, the entire internet fixated on this crab and was like, oh my god, this is the most amazing thing. We're getting a crab. It's a great looking crab, sure. But the love for this crab and all of the things that are coming out. People have already started campaigning. So every year, Games Workshop has an open vote where you can vote on whatever, literally every single model that came out in a given year, and you vote for what you think was the best model. So they award a model of the year. So people are already campaigning that we have to make this. Yeah, the crab has to be next year's model of the year, just for whatever. And
I like it. I think it's interesting though, right? It's because it's different. I feel like everything is so like humanoid, bipedal, and so when you get something different, it is exciting.
And so these are essentially like sea elves in the world of Age of Sigmar, and it's a cool crab, and of course you can paint it however you want and do the whole thing. But yeah, oh my god, and the memes. I've seen a picture of this next to it's like where it started, where are we now or whatever. And it's the fish and the crab or whatever from Little Mermaid, and then these. So yeah, it's a lot. The memeing is in full speed. Is it psionic? I don't know. That would be great if it's a psionic crab. Technically, this band is for Underworld. So again, it's one of these smaller games that exist in the larger universe of Age of Sigmar. So yeah, it's a crab.
Well, Crab Army for next year.
Yes, all crabs all the time.
Crab in a crab mech. I'm waiting.
And then of course they talked about upcoming novels and other fiction. So I'm excited for this book because this is we are finally getting. So I've talked a couple times this afternoon about the Horus Heresy era, and again we have this massive civil war in the Space Marines that's leading to this epic battle between the Emperor and Horus. I think we're on book 65 in this series now. I've read most of them. We're only a couple of books away from the culmination of this entire thing, and it's been a long time coming. So I'm excited to read the final story. So this is going to be great. So we've got so here it's the Jagatai Khan, who's the Primarch of the White Scars, down there at the bottom against Mortarion of the Death Guard. They do not like each other, so they're going to fight, and it'll be epic, it'll be glorious.
That cover art, though.
And then lastly, so here are all the pre-orders that just started today. So if you are into vampires, and typically Games Workshop will offer this. So like today, there are a bunch of different vampire specific units that have come out, and then books, and then accessories and other things. If you're way into it, you can buy them all together in the Legion of the Undead collection. It'll cost you a mere $420, but you'll get it all in one big package. But you'll see the breakdown. So they've got their own, the Soul Blight Grave Lords. So they've got their own book. There's some fiction. There are Blood Knights. There's the Big Lady. Skeleton, and then there's skeletons and just a whole bunch of undead stuff up for pre-order today, which means it'll be in your hand. Well, shipping is weird these days, so within the next 2 weeks at least.
Sweet. So that's not too bad. That's like a board game Kickstarter money. That's just a different game.
Yeah. The prices aren't so bad, and again, like the fact that these models individually are $60. It's not cheap, but again, this is a sizable model, which I think it's easier to stomach considering, like I said, a Space Marine character model will be $35 for something that's just this big. No more big ladies.
Goes into those too.
Yeah, for sure. And again, this one you can build it. I believe it's either or. You can build it as either version. Yeah, or you can build it as the Vengorian Lord. So they're generic. Do they have his picture on this one? No. Oh, they kept it as completely separate. That's annoying.
There were like color options below that. Does that determine like?
Oh, okay. So yeah, I'll get that. So basically, so this is a generic Vengorian Lord, or you can build it as the specific character. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what happens here is in the last couple of years, Games Workshop came out with an app for all of their colors and all their paints, which is actually really, really handy. I do recommend it for anybody who's into miniature painting at all, whether you're doing Warhammer or anything else, just because it's really great color combinations and tells you how to make stuff. The app is free. It's Citadel Color, I think is the name of it. But yeah, so this is basically showing you to make black, what are the paints that you need, and then of course you can like buy them directly here. But these are all of the different paints that go into a basic version of this.
Oh my god.
Now, if you were going to do every single detail, you would need more than this is showing you, but this will get you close. Yeah, it's a lot.
It is. The paints are great though. I will vouch. They're cool, especially like the crazy like texture and effects ones are really fun.
Yeah, they've got the technical paints, they call it. That line is rad. Yeah, they've got stuff that you can use for your bases, use for like rust and things on models. They've got one for snow. There's one called Blood for the Blood God that's like literally goopy blood that you can splatter on things. Yeah, it's great. I'm doing something that's kind of different these days. So I love the color pink.
Mm-hmm.
And the pinks that you can buy from a lot of these paint companies, they're not super vibrant. It's not easy to make a really vibrant pink paint. So I've been on a mission, and it is continuing. I know people, you stick with me. One day I'll finish this. But for my Space Marines, because again, when you play Space Marines, you can paint them to look like specific factions that have been in the lore. You can paint them blue like Ultramarines, that kind of thing. Or you can paint them your own color scheme and call them whatever you want. So I want pink Space Marines, but I don't want the standard pink colors.
Mm-hmm.
So what I've been doing, and I only thought of this because my wife makes soaps. And so she has all these really interesting things that she uses to make colors and obviously scents and things like that. But one thing that she has are pigments. So I've been experimenting, mixing up pigments into paints. And again, I have different kinds of pigments from different companies in the world. I've got different mediums from different companies around the world. It's a lot.
You have like the Stuart Semple Pinkest Pink.
I don't have that one, and only because somebody's done a video about trying out like every different black paint there is, including like the blackest black paints. And in that video, at least, they found that those like extreme paints are not great for miniatures.
Oh,
but I'd love to try it. I'd love to try it one day. So anyway, so I've been mixing these up, and where are my testers? And so like it's getting pretty pink.
Oh wow!
So that's my best test so far, and like even that's not done. It's pretty flat. I need to add some depth to it, but yeah, it's getting there.
It's like
I'm also
bowling, man. That's dope.
Exactly. Well, and I'm trying to learn about color theory, which is a thing that does not come naturally to me. Some people like get it immediately, but yeah, trying to look at like what color is opposite, and yeah, for some reason, if you have black, I haven't put that under blacklight. That'd be cool. But like a hot pink opposite on the color wheel is like a lime green. So apparently your eye will like that, or it will pop. So I'm trying it out.
I did start a cute little Easter bunny orc who's pink. He's got a little fluffy.
Oh, neat. That's awesome. That's great. Yeah, so that's like I said, that's one of the projects. I always have so many things going, but for me, again, if you're here and you've watched my streams before, you'll know everything I'm about to say. But I like painting. I can do a halfway decent job at painting, but I have anxiety about painting. I have anxiety about like, okay, what do I really want these guys to look like? What colors do I need? I need all of my stuff before I start, and time is an issue. If I sit down and I only have a small amount of time to work on a hobby project, I'm probably going to build something because I can build a model very quickly. But if I want to paint, I want to sit down and be able to focus for a long period of time. And also, it's just energy. I find that to paint, I have to be able to focus really well. I have to have energy, and especially these days with 2 small children who don't really leave the house much. My wife and I do most of our work at night. We're up till very, very late at night, and I just don't have the energy for a lot of painting these days. I wish I did. I'd love to do more, but I do a lot of building. I've built a lot of models in the last few months, but painting, not so much. Undead Saints fan says, folk art, multi-surface paints in assorted colors, bright pink. All right, I'll check it out. I'm always willing to try new pink paints. I have a lot of them. And I will definitely get more. I did recently see, I mentioned this on a stream, Midwinter Minis, the YouTube channel, talked about this product. So it's made by Winsor Newton, which you might know from their brushes. They do really great paint brushes. Actually, that's what I use. But this is their Galleria acrylic medium, the matte medium. And I do find it interesting that they just spelled it M-A-T-T. What are you gonna do? That this apparently is like the ultimate in hobby stuff. Like you can do so many things with this, but it's also good for mixing with pigments to make paints. So this is gonna be my next test with my favorite pigment, and we'll see if it works. Danny, do you paint traditionally? Do you do any airbrushing?
I've been looking into airbrushes. I have a couple of friends who have an effects company, so I've been bothering them a lot of being like, what would be good? Because there's so many options, right? And then but yeah, so I've just they're not in here anymore. We moved them to another desk. But I was like on vacation, and a bunch of really nice tiny brushes were on sale. So I got a little pack of brushes. So slowly but surely. But yeah, for me, it's just I don't have the instinct or the knowledge of like when to layer what. So unless somebody's babysitting me, like paint that now, and then paint this next, and then do that. I have a tendency to be very heavy-handed with a wash or two. It's like, oh, it's so cool, and then like it doesn't look cool anymore. Now it's just gross, clunky. Like I ruined a lot of my Star Wars minis because I was making like rebel troops and stuff, and I primed them wrong. Like whatever primer I used, just like it was practically liquid repellent, so all the paint was just rolling off of it. So solution, more paint. So I'm just slopping it on, filling every crack. So they're just these super smooth, like they look like they've been sandblasted.
Sure.
And then I was like, I could save this with dunk some shadow, and it's like it's horrendous. And a lot of my troopers ended up really bad too. But I'm learning what not to do, so that's a
that's learning. Yeah, there are certain techniques out there. Washes can be amazing. Oftentimes, like you'll paint on just some paint that'll look really flat, and then you throw a wash on there. And it's like, holy crap! Now there's depth, there's shadows. I just recently watched a YouTuber though who's a really amazing painter, and he said one of like his biggest breakthroughs was don't use washes because it is when you put a wash on it generally goes on to more or less an extent like evenly, so you're going to get depth in every place on where you put a wash rather than working on really figuring out like, okay, if light is hitting this model, where should the recesses be? They shouldn't just be everywhere.
Right.
Which I thought was interesting, and like that's like galaxy brain further than where I am. But for now, I'm definitely still using washes. Washes are great. They make my models look a lot better than when I first paint them.
Like I love there's I don't remember who does it, but he does like the official painting videos for Legion specifically, and there's like the effects for like lightsaber light hitting all the black cloth and plastic, like in the armor of Vader. I was like, how in the hell?
Yeah.
And then there was another guy though who did an entire ship, like it was like a snow speeder. But and I think he also did an X-wing, but he used only washes, but like super thin down.
Wow.
To eventually get this effect, and I was like, it was nuts because you have warm and cool ones, and so it's like the same way that you would approach thin painting, but there
are, and again, YouTube is just there's everything you could possibly want to learn is on YouTube. It's just a matter of finding it and then figuring out how you can get that knowledge into yourself and practice. But there's so many different paint techniques and styles out there. Good luck if you're just starting out. Again, I always tell people I was lucky enough that my local comic book store / game store that I always go to, one of the managers there is a really, really expert miniature painter, and he just offers classes, or did, once a month. And I went in and I took one class and I learned all of the basics. And then after that, it was just practice and then YouTube videos. And again, like I'm not a great painter, but when I have the time, the energy, and the components that I need, I can do an okay job. I'm also looking into airbrush. I have an airbrush. It is in this house. I have not yet put it together, but I'm very excited to try it, especially on bigger things like vehicles. I've never painted a vehicle myself because that's a lot of flat surfaces, and I don't want it to all look like brush strokes. So I hear airbrushes are very good for that.
Yeah, I think Andrew from our studio, he used some airbrushes for like some of our like speeder bikes and stuff like that. And he's got a very steady hand, which I also don't. Like, I just can't be still. It's just me. So like I'll be sweating if it's like time to do like a pupil, right?
Like,
trying to guide the hand in there.
Yeah.
So mad props to anyone who can paint really well, because it's hard, man.
Yes. Yeah. And again, there are tricks and there are things to make it easier. But that was cool.
Yeah, Lockerbie painted this one. I should have grabbed all the Star Wars ones. So he did a really good
nice. That's great. Yeah, there are all these techniques for locking down all of your basically everything that moves. You want to keep everything solid. So your elbows tight to the sides of your chest, your palms together. You're basically you're holding everything as tightly as possible. So you're only moving a tiny bit of muscle movement.
Oh, man. Yeah. Ooh, question for you: when you paint, or do you? Because I've had every school yell at me on the few streams I've done where I've painted. Right? Like, you're supposed to paint them on the sprues, or you're supposed to paint them after you put it together, or you're supposed to take them off the sprues and paint them there. Do you have a process? Because I'm wrong no matter what. Is what I've learned.
Absolutely. There's always an expert who will yell at you for one thing or another. Thus far, in all of the stuff that I've painted, and again, I have yet to paint one of my vehicles. I've painted dudes of various sizes, but I haven't painted a vehicle. For me, thus far, I've always built the model and then I paint it. When you do it that way, are there going to be areas of the model that you can't get to paint as well? Yes. Yeah, of course. That's just the way it is. Even with these, here's another tester, but even a little Space Marine, like, can I get down, on the bottom of his chest behind the gun? No, I'm not going to be able to get all of the detail in there. You can see there's like lots of different colors on this thing. So then it becomes a question of, well, does that matter to you? And if it doesn't, then screw it. Also, and everybody needs to remember this no matter what, if you're painting miniatures for a game like Warhammer 40K, number one, you're going to have a whole bunch of them in your army, and you're only really going to see them from 3 feet away or more. So not every detail has to be done. Now, of course, you're going to have like your hero minis or your army leaders or some of the bigger stuff that you can do more detail on, but you can do things there's certain levels they call it. So like table ready is, get your colors, get some washes on there, get them going. Now there are other people. I think most good painters will do what are called sub-assemblies. So they'll build parts of the model, but they won't combine parts that obscure other areas. So they'll build the legs, they'll build the main body, they'll build the arms, and then they'll paint those separate and then attach them to glue those together. And then, yes, there are some, I think they're crazy, but there are people who will actually paint the parts on the sprue before they even cut them out. I actually don't understand, because when I cut things off of the sprue, there's so much cleanup I do just on the nubs, and then any mold lines, and then that's just like especially modern sprues. We've talked about this, but the way these parts are engineered to fit together, I like I said, I don't understand that, but some people do it. That is a thing. For my knight here, I am actually doing essentially sub-assemblies. So these legs, for instance, will have armor panels that go over like where these notches are. Mm-hmm. So armor panels attached there. But I'm not going to put those on. I'm going to paint the skeleton of the knight first and then put those on and paint those. But that's a little bit easier and more obvious. And again, it's easy on this thing because it has so many armor panels that cover it. Basically what people do is they'll take the skeleton like this. You'll just spray it down with a metallic color, do a wash on there, do some highlights with a different metallic color, and it's good to go. Because it's going to be covered up by so much other stuff. But yeah, it's but as Rabid Wombat says, paint it the way you feel most comfortable, and that is the right way.
Blind panic it is.
And also now too, just in the last couple of years, there are new tools for painting that have changed things a lot for people. So traditionally, acrylic paint for painting things like Warhammer and other miniatures, the idea has been you've got to thin down your paints as much as possible, put super thin coats so it doesn't block up the details, let it dry, put another coat on there, let it dry, maybe put another coat on there. It takes a very long time, but again, you can really get the details very, very cleanly. Now there are things like contrast paints from Games Workshop, and other companies have these same things where the paint is more of it's a mixture of elements inside, and it has heavier elements that will sink down into recesses. So with one heavier coverage, it'll actually give you the appearance of having done regular painting and shading to some degree.
Got it. See, I've heard of those, but I've never heard them broken down in a way where I actually understood what anybody was talking about. So that's super cool.
Yeah, and again, depending on how you paint and what you're painting, they can be amazing. They don't work very well on models that have large flat surfaces like Space Marines, unfortunately, because those paints work best when there are places basically for those particulates to move. Mm-hmm. So actually, here's a model that I have in progress. But like on the fur parts.
Oh yeah, and that's
all that fur. That's one coat of paint. That that seeps down and gives you like that look of the darker recesses and the lighter stuff on top.
Cool.
Yeah. So this is a model from a game called Wild West Exodus. It's like Native Americans and wild things and weird stuff. So that's cool. I started this one a while ago. I should probably get back to it and finish it one day.
My ultimate goal is I want to get decent enough at painting so that I can paint all of my Rising Sun stuff. So I went all in on that. So I have all the minis and they're all gorgeous. And I was like, I cannot screw these up because I'm never buying them again.
Yeah. Which again is kind of a nice thing about a game like Warhammer is that typically your army will have a bunch of just grunts and just practice your paint on them.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that's been like the best thing about this. Like I probably wouldn't have jumped in otherwise because like I guess being tactile guy, like I really like my stuff. I like my board games. I like all my components. So it's like I treat them with such reverence, and I like the idea. It's like, well, I slapped this together, so already it's like I'm in control of this thing existing, right? So I pose them in ways like I can reach everything and take care of it. Sure. Fun. Yeah.
So do you see? I mean, obviously, the world we're living in is right now is crazy, and who knows what things will be like in a month, let alone a year. But do you see yourself sticking with Warhammer and continuing with it? And
I would love to. Yeah, we have. So before all that hit, like we were just putting like finishing touches on like our little tavern area here at the studio. Yeah. And we got a big table. We got I was like, I'm the board game guy, so I was like, yes, I want to get everything to the table. And now like we finally can as we're all opening back up. So like everyone at our studio has been vaccinated. We're all good to go. So I'm excited to get those kinds of games back on the table, like a little bit different, because it's mostly been like 2-player board games with my fiance that we've been playing.
Sure.
And now that we can have people, I would love to, because I got to play with people who know how to play, and then because that's my problem. Is like I've tried to teach myself on my own outside of like, you're a very great guide. And then not having you while I have this book in my hands, I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah, Warhammer is definitely a game that it helps to have somebody there with you. You can read the rule book, but for most people's learning, I think it's better if there's somebody there to show you how. Mm-hmm. And again, a lot of people have taken to things like tabletop simulator, so they've been playing Warhammer online this past year. I installed it. I never got around to it, and now like I can probably go play with other people pretty soon. So I think I missed the boat on that, but that's fine.
Yeah, tabletop simulator is pretty cool though. Like I do really like it. I just
nice.
Also I still prefer. I like my hands on stuff. So
yeah. I mean, clearly, like somebody who's like me, who I get a lot of little toys and things. I definitely like to touch them. Well, hey, I mean, yeah. Once everybody's free to go out and do stuff, if you could use me, I'd be happy to come over. Sure.
Yeah. Open invite. Come over, kick our door in. Let's play.
I do very much like to teach people about Warhammer and get more people in.
I'd love that.
Tabletop simulator in VR. That sounds cool. I have not done that either.
It came out recently. There's another thing coming out in VR where it's D&D VR. So it's like you got your minis and you got your environments and stuff like that, which I think is pretty
cool. I can see that being fun. Yeah, I've done a little bit of Dungeons and Dragons, but I mean that's Dungeons and Dragons over Discord or Zoom. Like that still feels natural, I think. Mm-hmm. But something like miniatures, like you really, for me, I really got to be there and touch them.
Yeah.
Cool.
I gotta get armies for everybody else though too. So I think that's the next thing. I gotta convince the other guys to start playing.
Well, all right. So as soon as I have this project of like, if I'm talking to somebody who's not familiar, how do we figure out what army is best for you? I'll share that with you, and then you could use that on them and see what they come up with. Unless you're just gonna pick for them, because sometimes
I would want them to pick. I want them to like rally behind whoever they're playing. So
okay, that's fair. And again, that's something I talk about too, is when somebody is getting into Warhammer, or you're trying to bring somebody in and you're trying to figure out that all important, what faction do I want to get into? There are very definitely different ways of approaching that. I like to talk about, the four different ways? The meta player, like I really want a powerful army that can win. It's like, okay, that is fine. Go and look at all the tournament results lately and see what's been winning and buy that army. I don't recommend that for most people. Also, the meta for 40K is so fickle and changeable, and what wins right now in 2 months will be trash, potentially. Also, because of how Games Workshop will release a new book, and then a couple weeks later will release an FAQ that drastically changes things. And that's just the world. That's just the world we live in.
In the midst of this stream, I just realized that book I held up is out of date.
Yeah,
I had just gotten it in my brain. I was like, "Yay!"
That also that happens as well. But yeah, so that happens. But then I think the big thing for a lot of people is aesthetics. So, and for that, I always say, go to the website. There's a really handy menu at the left side where you can open up each army and look at that. Pick what thing you think looks cool. Then there's the lore. So I know some people, again, different people like different things about games. But if you are really all about, like, I want to play characters that I know and love, and I know what their motivation is, and I can get behind, that sort of narrative, especially, then you want to do a little bit more looking at the wikis for Warhammer than necessarily looking at the models. Again, that can get a little bit maybe a conflict if you find something that you like the lore but you don't like the models, but usually there's a way past that. And then the last one is play style. So if you are a board game player, or if you've played other miniatures games and you have a specific way you like to play, there's probably an army that's going to be better for you. And I do like to say, most armies, you can play them in different ways, potentially, but certain armies definitely lend themselves to one style or another. But yeah, so that's usually like the spiel I go on about different things. But they're all valid. Even if you're just a meta player and you just want to win, sure, go and buy an army that you might hate in a few months. And it's funny, and this is true. So whenever Games Workshop puts out an FAQ that nerfs a powerful army, you go on eBay and you'll see people selling off that army like crazy because they just like, I need the money so I can buy the next one. It's like, all right, I
have no desire to stay on top of stuff like that. It's like I just want to play. Yeah,
same
I'm
here.
definitely like of those options. I'm definitely the third, right? I read like the breakdowns of all the groups and it's like,
yeah,
Orcs for sure.
Yeah, and for
maybe Drukhari, they're pretty sweet.
Yeah, they are way top tier right now because again, they just got a book, so they're the best. They're winning just about everything. But that the FAQ shoe will drop here soon enough, and then people will be very mad. But yeah, right now they're tearing it up. Yeah, and then also most armies you have options as to like how you want to do the painting and some customization and stuff like that. More or less depending on the specific army. So Danny, where can people find you online and all of the cool stuff that you do?
Cool. You can find me personally at D Montooth on Instagram or Danny Montooth on Twitter because someone took my name on Twitter. And you can find me and everybody else over at twitch.tv/Perception Studio. We're also on YouTube. We just got on Volume, which we're figuring out. It's interesting. The newer platform. There's only maybe 2 pages of live people any day. So if you're thinking about jumping into streaming or maybe multi-streaming, if you're not already like partners, go nuts. Cool. It's interesting. We're figuring it out. It's new. Okay, it feels new. But yeah, that's pretty much that. And then if you like audiobooks, particularly romantic comedies, you can find me on Audible.
How did you get into audiobooks? I wanted to ask you.
Well, I'm a trained voice actor, and a lot of my work ended up just being through puppet gigs, right?
Sure.
But it's just one of those things that another friend of mine was doing it, and she's like, "Hey, you should do this." I was like, "Oh, okay." So I got on ACX, I created a profile, and I started auditioning and started getting books. And my first few are really, really bad because I didn't know what I was doing hardware-wise or anything. I had no mic technique, my current that particular setup. But I've kind of found my groove. My booth is actually just right over there. That's my little curtain swings around. Record that. And it's fun. Yeah. So I do a lot of co-narrating with my friend Diva Marie, who's also a voice actress. She's in a bunch of video games and stuff. But she plays in our Tuesday night D&D game. So we've done a lot of these romantic comedy books together. And I bounce between romance and fantasy. And that's kind of all I've done so far. I'm doing my first horror right now.
Ooh, that must be cool. How many books have you done?
14 or 15 or something like that. Okay. And the one I'm wrapping up right now is really fun. It's kind of like if you like Dresden Files or Supernatural, it kind of fits. It scratches that itch a little bit. It's called The Burke Misadventures. Stray Dogs is the first book. Nice. And it's this brother-sister combo who just go and kick ass. It's like if the Wizarding World was the mob, kind of, and they're up against it. They're like mercenaries who are trying to stick it to the man sort of thing. It's very fun.
That sounds cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so what is happening these days over on Perception?
We're in the middle of our partner push right now on Twitch. So we've got only a handful of shows still on Twitch. We're doing a lot of other stuff on YouTube to kind of play the stats game. But Tuesday nights is our live play D&D where I DM with the human players. Wednesday night is our sort of flagship show with the Felted Friends. If you like Chunk Cucumber, Brian and Corey are on that show. That's another one. We're doing some Candlekeep mysteries, but because of our bullshit, it has extended over several weeks instead of the one shot that it was probably intended to be. Sure. And then every Friday night up until June, we're doing Trash Your Piece Theater, which is we just do some old radio plays, and you guys can make us look like jackasses by throwing something our way and giving us situations or accents or something like that. And then after that, in June, we're going to do a new RPG. We're talking to our friends at Inquest of Geek and seeing what they're going to put together for us. So it'll be fun.
Very cool.
The majority, I think.
Nice. I know it's so many of us in these sorts of spheres. Like the list of everything we're doing is so long. Trying to remember.
Yeah. I'm also building a giant dragon right now. If you want to follow a fun build, I've been kind of teaching myself ZBrush out of necessity. So I sculpted this dragon head in ZBrush that we've now printed out. The final dragon's gonna be like 12 feet long for a production of Shrek.
Wow.
So we have some like pictures and stuff we've been updating on our stories. So if you like that kind of stuff, check it out because we're learning as we go. But we're gonna have like eye blinks, your eyes are gonna glow, and all this kind of stuff that we've never really done before at the studio. So
that's cool. Yeah. Fire. So yeah, how much of the like the building and the physical and like fabricating stuff do you do?
Collectively, all of it. Individually, I'm more like I can design, I can sketch, I can sculpt. And I can like look at a thing and be like, that shape is wrong, and then I like work with it. But art is very much like the larger picture. Like it needs to be this. These are the dimensions. This is the body. This is how this is going to hang. All that kind of stuff. Like he breaks that down. Ryan is sort of our technical / engineer guy. So he's the one who's like taken my sculpt and then put in all the mounts and where the blinks are going to go. He's adapted the model to fit all of the guts that are necessary that I don't understand. And so like with our powers combined, we're one competent person. But it's great. It's been a lot of fun. It's super cool. Actually, if you got 2 seconds, I could yoink the head in here if you want to see it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love all that stuff. And hello, Patty. Welcome. Hopefully you're having a good Saturday. Talking with Danny. Danny and the guys, the team over at Perception, they do some just amazing stuff. All of their puppets and oh my goodness, look at this.
Okay. So this isn't all the pieces. There's the back side of her head has this like big plastic ring on it that we're going to attach the neck to. For instance, here's the lower jaw.
Oh wow.
So we'll be sculpting once it's all like hooked up. We'll be sculpting a tongue. We'll be doing teeth and stuff on that. But we tried to do as much of the texturing because we knew it was going to be this big on this. So we'll probably do like a layer of plastidip and then just airbrush, sand down some of the other bits. Wow. And then we've got, this is the skull or part of it.
Oh my God.
So yeah, she's going to be big. She's a big girl. The print kind of failed a little bit here. We maxed out Ryan's printing bed, so it just didn't have anywhere to go. So that's this extra kind of stuff on top. But we've already print out the 4 inches or so that was missing. So there's another like slice that goes in here. This is the snout. So just kind of put it back here. And the way it lines up is very, very cute. But like this is the kind of stuff that Ryan's figured out is
the inner wow.
Yeah. And so for control, there's gonna be like a long, basically like broomstick, and there's gonna be like a belt that can sit in there, and we'll have a little neck and stuff for them so that they can control it. Ryan's already built the blink mechanism, and that'll be servos, and the eyes are gonna light up. And then if we have time, you can kind of see the holes here.
Is there gonna be smoke?
So hopefully, so that's like it's not something that we talked about. It's just something that I want to do if we have time. But like, there's a $50 like instructable on how to build a tiny little fog machine out of like a $20 vape and like $30 worth of materials. So if we can do it, we're gonna do it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I am so impressed by people who can turn like an idea or even like an image into like this fully functional realized thing like that moves and does stuff. That is super cool.
Thanks. Yeah,
and just the fabrication stuff is.
I've been enjoying sculpture, and I wish I don't have the brain for the movement, which I should, right? With puppeteer brain, like for soft goods, like if we're doing like a Muppet style thing, totally get it. But stuff like this, like hard stuff, I'm just like, Ryan, help, and I'll handle it.
Well, clearly you've done a good job of matching people with different skills who can all work together on these kind of things, which is very important. Yeah, and 3D printing is something that obviously there's so many different aspects to our world that 3D printing can help with. But yeah, seeing it in all of these artistic endeavors is really cool. We have, my wife and I, we talked about this. We've purchased a resin 3D printer so I can make miniature pieces and she can make molds and things. But we haven't set it up just yet. We're working on it. Yeah. We'll get there one day, but very excited.
Did you get like a Formlabs, a Moai? What'd you get?
We got one of the little ones. So it's an Elegoo. It's one of the small ones. So again, for like miniature parts and stuff. But sweet. Yeah, we're because it's resin and like we've got kids. We're doing it very safely. Outside, there's a small room that's attached to the garage outside that we were just using for junk. So like we've emptied that out. We're gonna build in the ventilation for it. So like everything's gonna be super safe. But that's cool. That's the plan at least.
Yeah, Ryan has a resin printer. He's done a couple minis for us so far. Very fragile. At least the resin that he was using was very fragile.
Okay,
it's still like the detail is insane. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's funny. I literally just today I went to the post office box and on Hero Forge, which again, like if you aren't on Hero Forge, what are you doing? But I just had printed miniatures that my kids actually designed in the program. So they're wild. So yeah, I'll paint these up for them one day. But it's like a dwarf with
fairy wings,
a banana and fairy wings and a tail holding a guitar. So this was designed by my 2-year-old, and he's got sunglasses and cat ears. His name is Fruity. Who knows? So it's that one. And then my older son, who's almost 7, designed this like a kind of like a dragonborn sorcerer with an admiral's outfit. I don't know. It's wild. But yeah, the resin 3D printing stuff is just so cool. I have a large folder of STLs that I've already downloaded. I'm ready. Like as soon as that thing is set up, I'm ready to start printing stuff for my knight, stuff for my all my miniatures. I cannot wait. It's gonna be great. Cool. Well, Danny, thank you so much for hanging out with me today and chatting about Warhammer stuff. Hopefully, one of these days we can play in real life again soon.
Yeah. Let me know. Yeah, we'll chat for sure. Definitely down.
Yeah, it's funny. Every so often, I think about those games that we played. Again, one of them here in my house, and then the second half was over that was when Hyper moved now to the previous studio. Now that they're in right. They just moved again. But that was the last time there was the big move.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I forget how many thousands of points we used in that game, but it was a lot.
It was obscene. It was a lot of things happening. It was really cool.
It was super. Yeah, it was super fun. Let me see. We should raid somebody because raiding is fun. Let's see who is online. I'm opening that. Let's see. I guess we could raid Hyper. They're online doing something.
Yeah.
Okay, let me institute. Terran Stark, welcome.
I'm late. I'm so late. Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit. But thanks for stopping by, certainly. Okay. And I should mention that this recording will be on my YouTube channel at some point. We'll tweet it out. We'll let everybody know. Cool. It'll be out there for everybody. I'm gonna start that. Okay, cool. So yeah, we're gonna raid Hyper RPG. I'm sure most of you watching know who Hyper RPG is, who they are, and send it over to them. For everybody else, have a great weekend. If you're a fan of the stuff that I'm doing with the Home Buddies, we will be on tonight at 7 p.m. Pacific over on the Emma Fife channel. We're doing Trivia Night. It is a new form of trivia, so I don't know exactly what to expect, but everybody's welcome to join in with that. Danny, do you have anything cool going on this weekend specifically?
This weekend, I don't, but Cucumber and Chunk will be playing over at Level Up TTV on Sunday. Okay. They're doing an all-felted friend game, so they're also playing with a little goblin guy who's new to them at Sarah's Table. So if you're familiar with Sarah's Table, they'll be over on that.
Cool.
At Michael Dice's channel. Yeah.
All right. Well, everybody also go and check that out. Okay, cool. So we're going to do this raid, and thanks everybody for hanging out with us and chatting about everything Warhammer. All right. We wave awkwardly while...
Yay!
All right, bye, everybody. And it looks like that happened. Maybe. You never really know. All right, I'm just going to hit